Bring the heart.
It's time to get loud.
Let's go! Because this is Betfred Super League.
Bring it on.
Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped me ear off. What do you think?
Hello and welcome along to Eddie and Stevo, the podcast, Rugby League's finest, supported as always by our great friends at Betfred. Now then, we've not been with you for a few weeks for various reasons. You may have seen our recent tweets that Stevo wasn't feeling too clever down there in Australia. So before we begin, what's going to be a packed 60th edition of our podcast? Let's get a progress report from him now. I trust you're feeling better this week, Stevo.
I certainly am, top man, and I must say it's been a rugged 4 weeks. I'm still not out of the woods yet, still got a croaky voice, but the chest infection after 3 bouts of antibiotics, I think I'm getting better.
Good lad. Good lad. Well, we've got lots to cover in this, as I say, our 60th edition, and we've not chatted since the Challenge Cup final. So let's begin by looking back to that memorable day in May at Tottenham, Wigan beating Huddersfield, but only just. Liam Marshall's late try breaking the hearts of the Huddersfield Giants. And, you know, Stevo, many people have said to me that the best team lost.
Well, I did see the full broadcast of that, and it looked as though that Huddersfield was going to hang on. But the one thing you got to give about this Wigan side, and under the new coach Pete, is gone for a lot of youth. I know they've still got the experienced players, but they seem to have found a lot of young players coming through. And it was, I suppose, in many ways, I'd have to agree that Huddersfield was by far the better side. But that's not what it's all about. If you score the points, you win the trophy.
Absolutely you do. Just the one controversial incident, I suppose. Should Wigan's Morgan Smithies have been carded for at least one of the 2 high tackles? He's subsequently been banned for 4 matches, and Ian Watson, the Giants coach, was left furious.
And it's every right to feel that way because remember at the start of the season, there was a huge clampdown and you can't just throw it away. Now, over the years, people have said to me, don't sin bin because it'll spoil the game, etc. and so forth. Look, it's all about the referees being fair. It's difficult to do, but I think you should at least have got 10 minutes in the sin bin.
Well, I think if referee James Child had his time over again, he might have produced a yellow card on the day. But, Steve, let's face it, generally, you just don't seem to get sent off in finals, either grand finals or Challenge Cup finals. 1 or 2 notable exceptions, of course, but generally, nobody gets carded.
Yeah, and I think that's wrong. I also realised that many, many years ago, and for a long, long time, that every single final, you've got about 15 minutes before we get a penalty at all. Now, whether the top brass over the years are saying to the officials, look, we want to make this a wonderful occasion, so we don't want to start affair in the first 15, 20 minutes. You can't prove that, but it's going to take a lot for people to sway against what I feel is that they allow anything to go in the 15, 20 minutes of the game.
Yeah, that's fair comment. But hey, listen, on the positive side, what a venue. What a venue Tottenham proved to be. Everyone that was there say it was magnificent. And that now begs a question moving forward. Wembley or Tottenham for the final? some people have actually suggested in these austere times, why not play it in the north of England? I think that'd be a mistake, don't you?
Oh, huge mistake. Not only the fact that it's a celebration for every supporter to get the opportunity to go down to the capital city, have a good time, have a great weekend. It's not just about the game. It's about creating this atmosphere that we've created at Wembley. Now, the rumours are the reason why they had to go away from Wembley and go to Tottenham was the fact that because they had to cancel the World Cup and Tottenham was one of the venues, that they still had to pay for all the security, etc., in regards to the fact that if you don't play the game at Tottenham, you still got to have to pay for it. And I reckon that someone at the RFL said, "Well, look, why don't we have the normal Wembley final, Challenge Cup final?" Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But you ask any player. I never played at Wembley. I know you did, but I never played at Wembley. In as much that you ask any rugby league player in the UK the chance to play at Tottenham or Wembley, 100% will say Wembley. It's magic. The name Wembley is magic.
Well, it is. Absolutely, it is. I think the problem was that it was decided to move the final back to May. Of course, the BBC, in their wisdom, wanted it moved to the back end of the season a few years ago, but they've decided now they want it back in May, and they all lauded the fact that it was back in May on the broadcast. But the weekend that was chosen was the same weekend as all the football playoff finals down at Wembley. So the date, quite simply, wasn't available. I think that's why it's been played at Tottenham. But as I say, everybody, Betfred's own Fred Doan said to me, it is the finest stadium I have ever been to. Now that is quite an accolade, isn't it?
Certainly is, but as I say, look, in life there are certain things where you think it's magic. Go to the Grand National, go to the Derby, and things like that. You're not going to change the venue because it's sort of steeped into your history and your blood. And as I say, I'll repeat it. Ask any rugby league player, Tottenham or Wembley, Tottenham wouldn't even get a chance.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Wembley is steeped in history, and I think it'll be back there next year. Okay, some other Wigan news. Sean O'Loughlin, he is now an OBE, Stevo. He's picked up the award in the honours list. Richly deserved, an understated guy, underrated, but what a servant to the game and, of course, to Wigan itself.
Not only that, he's a gentleman.
Yeah.
A wonderful, wonderful player. Gave 110% every time he laced his boots. And I'm so pleased that he got the Queen's Award. Fully deserved. And when you look back, you look at people who have been honoured by the Queen in regards to rugby league players. Like, you take Sinfield. What is done for charity, etc., and so forth. It's not just given out because of your plain prowess. It's to what you are as a person. And I'm so pleased for Sean O'Loughlin. Fully deserved.
Very much so. And you, of course, speaking from great experience about this, because I'm talking here to Michael Stevenson, MBE. And you got your award from Her Majesty herself, didn't you?
I certainly did. And it's one of the proudest moments of my life. And so it should be. And I'm just hopeful, Eddie, that I've been trying to push the barrow out for you to get a Queen's Award.
I'll get the Queen's Award for industry, trying to keep this thing going with you every week. Listen, let's move on. State of Origin, Part 2 in Perth, coming up this Sunday. What a game we had in the first match in Sydney a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely magnificent. Queensland won it, of course, but that was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it?
Well, yes, because New South Wales were playing at home. But I must give a lot of credit to the Queensland coach. He sorted things out. He knew that the main players for the Blues were the two halfbacks, and they just crushed them. The outside centres came in on the angle and never allowed the halfbacks to produce the long ball out wide, which you've seen at Penrith for the last 2 seasons. They knew that the key player, they had to just make sure, stop the halfbacks. And they also made it a little bit easy for them because for some unknown reason, New South Wales were not working at the ruck. I think that New South Wales, they've admitted now that they were too soft. They went out there to play rugby league, keep the ball alive, but they were quashed in. And they've made it quite clear. Fittler has said, right, we were too soft. So that means to me, don't miss number 2, because it could be a bit of fireworks going on. A lot of people keep saying they've done it for years. Bring back the bash. I don't condone to that at all. But I do condone to saying that we can be a little bit tougher than what the New South Wales Blues offered against Queensland. I live in New South Wales, so I'm a fan. I want the Blues to win. But you've got to give credit to the way that Slater got his team working hard, and they came up with a result.
They certainly did, and it was a personal triumph for Billy Slater, no doubt about that. They said in commentary, Stevo, he's never coached at any top level before, anywhere in the world prior to that game. I mean, blimey. I thought coaches were sort of drilled out of the ground to be successful. This fella's come from nowhere, and he's won this first State of Origin match in his first ever coaching role.
Yeah, but if you also look at the fact that Fittler, he's never really coached at top level with club games. Paul Vorton, he was a coach of Queensland for many, many years. Never really had experience at top level as a club coach. But the State of Origin has been created amongst the lines of we hate each other. It was like Yorkshire-Lancashire. They hate each other. And when it comes to that game, you lift. I mean, Cherry Evans hasn't been having the greatest time at Manly, but he was one of the key players when he plays for Queensland. It's all a matter of playing with pride and making sure the basics are there. And the basics are very simple. Tackle the opposition out of the game and make sure that your energy levels are more than your opposition. But what makes me wonder, Eddie, Fittler has made 7 changes. Now, can you imagine a coach in England trying to say, well, I can change 7 top-class international players and bring in another 7 international players? I don't think that we could do that in the UK.
No, we couldn't. And there's 6 others yet to play State of Origin in the New South Wales squad. 78% of the teams, they tell me, that win the first game go on and win the series. Now, 7 changes. If a coach in this country made 7 changes coming into a second match, you'd say he's in a bit of trouble. Is Brad Fittler in a bit of a mess or not?
No, not really, because he's got quality players around him. I mean, a lot of people, they're saying, well, so-and-so didn't get a go, so-and-so didn't get a go. And you could probably add another 7 players on top of the new 7 players. And that gives you some indication of the depth and quality of what they have down under.
Very much so. And 80,000 inside the ground in Sydney for the first game. Doubtless another sellout in Perth on Sunday. Listen, here's a question for you. Is State of Origin more important to Australia and Australian fans than the international game?
Sadly, yes. And sadly, the people in the power down here realise that they can get 80,000 to this state of origin situation. It's not quite clear because we've been in the wilderness, haven't we, international-wise. And I thought that the biggest mistake that was done many years ago was to do away with the Ashes series. Australia versus Great Britain, or England as it is now, was magic. People would fly over to England from Australia and vice versa. It's a magic thing to be able to go on the tour. But you look through all the history of it, all the great players, all the great games that have been played. And for me, it was a huge mistake that they tried to sort of say, well, it's not as important as state of origin. But to me, that was wrong. A little bit self-centered. We're not really worried about, the Australia games and this and other. It's all about, the Aussies, we're too big, we're too strong, etc. and so forth. And it irks me. It really does, because playing for your country is the highest accolade you can get. It doesn't matter whether you played 100 state of origin games for Queensland or New South Wales. To play for your country, you can't beat that, Eddie.
No, I'm sure you can't. And of course, it was international weekend this last weekend up here. England recorded 3 wins from 3 matches. The women beat France 36-10. The wheelchair international finished England 62, France 48. The Welsh men's team, by the way, lost 36-10 in Albi to the French, while the Welsh women beat Italy 60 points to 0. Now, Sean Wayne's England beat the international All-Stars 18 points to 4 in their World Cup warm-up. This is only the 3rd time that Sean Wayne has had charge of his England team. And unlike 12 months ago, they actually got a win. What did you make of this, with 17 weeks now to go to the start of the World Cup 2022?
Well, I'm sure that the England coach would want more games, more opportunity. And I suppose when you think about the fact that the tense games in the state of origin will give Australia and the Australian players a little bit more influence in regards and confidence to come over for the World Cup. So Sean Wayne has got a difficult job. The pandemic didn't help. We all know that. But the one good thing about it is that I was really pleased that John Bateman got back to his top form. Since he came back from Australia, I haven't really been impressed by the way that he's played. But there was one man I thought that he was outstanding. The only sadness about the game, Eddie, there was only 9,500 people in the crowd. And that disappointed me.
Well, allegedly 9,500. I'm wondering if people bought tickets and didn't go. They didn't look like there was that many there, I must confess.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of empty seats, that is for sure. But we'll have to wait and see. But this weekend, Eddie, I mean, it's a Pacific Nations weekend.
It is.
I mean, PNG versus Fiji, New Zealand versus Tonga, Samoa versus Cook Islands. And when you look through the list of all those players, boy, they're not going to be easy to beat. And, England, they have to play Samoa in the first game in the World Cup competition.
They do.
And Samoa have got some fantastic players.
Well,
So
we'll be able to assess them all on Sky at 8:40 a.m. In the morning. You're right. England won't find it easy against the Samoans at Newcastle in October, will they? In October in the World Cup opener, no question.
No, you're right. You look through all the club games down here in Australia, and it's awash with Pacific Nation players. They were born here in Australia because a lot of these Pacific Nations families came over to Australia to find a new life, etc. and so forth. And it's developing. And if you look through the list of all the clubs, there's a sprinkling of Fijians, Papua New Guinean, Tongans, Samoa. I mean, it's just amazing how it's all developed.
It's a massive challenge for England coming up in October. There's no doubt about that. But all the hopefuls for England back in the Super League firing line this weekend as the race to Old Trafford resumes. Sean Wayne trusts George Williams right now as his halfback, but his form hasn't been brilliant for Warrington. I think that's the understatement of the year. He's been getting a bit of stick from the fans here, but he needs a good show against Hull live on Sky this Friday for a number of reasons, doesn't he?
Yeah, he sure does. You've got to be at your best to be selected. Look, he's a very, very good player, but you've also got to take a look at the fact that perhaps he's not playing well because the club he's playing with, they're not playing well at all. And I find it very, very difficult in regards to the way that Warrington are not playing. I mean, Daryl Powell obviously has made a decision. I'm having a clear out. I'm getting rid. Now, I think it's about 12 or 13 players that are off contract at the end of this season. And I think you might be getting rid of, at least 10 of them. Now, there's talk about there's a bit of a bust-up, that some of the players don't get on with Powell, etc. But that always happens if you're not winning. Everybody wants to blame someone else. But it appears to me that Daryl Powell has changed his attitude, obviously wants to have a big sort out. I watched the game a couple of weeks ago, Eddie, and Daryl Clark, the hooker, to me, tremendous player. And of course, he came through under the coaching of Daryl Powell. And yet, in the entire game, he ran once from dummy half. It's amazing. Here is a man that made his name so much to be selected at international level, mainly due to the fact that it was magnificent of running from the play the ball area and breaking through, and yet he only ran once. Now, that's got to be a problem.
Well, it has. And in the international last weekend, Daryl was playing for the All-Stars, of course. He couldn't get a place in the England team. And I think the commentators on the day said that England had run about 2 or 3 times from dummy half. The All-Stars had run about 6, 7 or 8 times from dummy half. I wonder if he's playing to instructions at Warrington then.
Well, obviously. Or is he being selected a little bit under the weather? Is he carrying an injury? But if he runs from dummy half for the All-Stars, then there has to be a question to say why. The man his ability comes from running from dummy half. Always has been. Talented player. Very, very much in the mould of James Roby, etc. And if you're not playing well as a team, then individually, as you say, it's going to be difficult.
It is. You mentioned James Roby there. He has come out in the last 24 hours and he has now decided that he has yet to decide whether he's going to retire. He's going to make a decision in the next couple of weeks, he said. He got a try in his 455th record Super League appearance last time out. I don't think he's been tapped up yet by Sean Wayne to come back for the World Cup. But Roby, at 30-odd, 35, 36, he's thinking about going round again.
Well, all I can think of is that he's a tremendous player. And I always like to think that legends, and he is a legend, would like to retire at the top. And I think if St. Helens won again and won the grand final, what a great way to say, well, that's it. I'm, throwing the boots away.
At the other end of the table, we got Saints 4 points clear at the top of Super League at the moment. At the other end of the table, Toulouse 6 points adrift. I mean, they're doomed to relegation after just 1 year. That's really unfair, but that's the way it is. In the Championship now, Stevo, Lee have gone top of the table. They beat Featherstone last Monday night, following a win against the same opposition in the 1895 Cup final at Tottenham on Challenge Cup final day. Lee now favourites to bounce straight back up by the looks of things.
Well, it's going to be difficult for Lee and Featherstone to sort of sort themselves out. But you'll have to look at the programme, how it's going to finish at the end of this season. Who plays who over the course of the final weeks of the championship? That's where it'll be won or lost.
Yeah, Lee have got it all on. There's no question to maintain their lead at the top of the table. And still talking Championship Rugby League, John Keir. He's taken control of Widnes Vikings. Well, officially in a week's time anyway, till the end of 2023 at least. Isn't he the ideal man for the job, restoring Widnes to the status they once had?
How many clubs has he restored? Look, he's been a great character, a great coach. There's no two ways about it. He has the ability of lifting certain players who perhaps are not up there with all the class of many other players, but he just seems to get the best out of the team. And like I said about Roby, maybe John Keir hasn't still finished paying off his mortgage.
Maybe not. He's 60 odd as John, but what a character.
Listen, you can't fault the man. How many times has a club gone to him and said, "Look, help us out"? A lot of people forget, that in the early days he went down to Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, he was a key figure to go down there to help the French produce a team that would be good enough to be in Super League. He's not just done it at club level. He's done it at international level as well. And in France. He's a magnificent character.
He is.
I enjoy his company because of one thing. The only thing he talks about is saving money and rugby league.
Exactly. And he's the Welsh coach for the World Cup coming up at the end of the year.
And I tell you what, Eddie, he still owes me a few beers.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. But actually, it does surprise. You mean you have bought John Keir a few beers?
Yes.
Good God.
And I'm hoping that I live long enough for him to get round to repaying me.
I doubt it somehow. Look, before we go, some really sad news to end on again this week. Your old Penrith teammate, Bill Ashurst, he's passed away at the age of just 73, taken far too young.
Yeah, sad news indeed. Probably one of the influential individual rugby league players that I had the pleasure of playing alongside. Individual performances, individual skill, outstanding. Rest in peace, my friend.
Indeed so. Can you just give us a quick story about him before we go?
I used to say, how's it going, Bill? You had a bit of problem with my leg. I think I'll make it for Saturday.
That's why he missed training.
One of his closest friends was always a physiotherapist.
But he always got him back. He always got him up.
Listen, he was a character. Very much a character.
Anything else for us that's caught your eye before we disappear? What's going on down there? I know Michael Maguire's out of a job. Nathan Brown's out of a job. Christian Wolff on his way to Australia, do you think?
Well, that is the big news over here. But also, Mick Potter has turned things around at the Canterbury Bulldogs. And there's talk about him being given the full-time job. And he's doing a damn fine job. I mean, Canterbury, out of nowhere, have had 2 wins on the trot, which I think is the first time they've had consecutive wins for somewhere around about 50-odd games.
Wow.
So he's getting into it as well, you know.
Look, instead of 4 weeks, it'll be 7 days before we catch up with you again. So I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. So take care of yourself, keep taking the tablets, and stay well.
I hope so, Eddie. Take care, my friend.
And get that voice back to 100%.